SpaceX just dropped the timeline for Flight 12, and it's happening sooner than anyone expected. This isn't just another test flight, it's Starship V3's debut, bringing Raptor 3 engines, redesigned heat shields, and upgraded grid fins all at once. The catch? Both stages are splashing down in the ocean because there's simply too much new hardware to risk on a catch attempt. But here's what nobody's talking about. If Flight 12 fails, everything that comes after, orbital missions, payload deployments, even refueling tests, gets pushed back. So the real question is, can SpaceX nail this massive upgrade on the first try? Let me walk you through why Flight 12 carries so much weight. SpaceX has been testing Starship for nearly 3 years now, 11 flight tests across 2 major versions. They've caught the Super Heavy booster with Mechazilla 3 times, which is impressive. But the ship itself? Still working through some serious challenges. We're talking composite pressure vessel failures, propellant leaks, igniter malfunctions, heat shield damage. These aren't small problems you can patch over quickly. So when SpaceX decides to load up V3 with Raptor 3 engines, a completely redesigned heat shield, and upgraded grid fins all in one flight, you have to wonder, is this too much change at once? Now, here's where the 2026 timeline starts to get really interesting. Based on what we're seeing with launch cadence and regulatory approvals, I'm estimating 8 flights this year. Flight 12 kicks things off, probably slipping into February based on current prep work. After that, we're looking at missions roughly every 6 to 8 weeks through the first half of the year. But that's assuming everything goes smoothly. One major failure early on, the entire schedule compresses like a spring, and suddenly those ambitious plans start looking a lot more difficult. The decision to splash both stages down in the ocean actually tells you everything you need to know about what SpaceX is thinking right now. Look, they've already caught the booster 3 times. They know Mechazilla works. But with Raptor 3 flying for the first time and a fundamentally different heat shield design, they're not about to bet a tower catch on hardware that hasn't proven itself yet. It's actually the smart play when you think about it. Better to validate these new systems in controlled ocean landings than risk a safety incident that could trigger months of FAA investigations. This isn't SpaceX backing down, it's calculated risk management at a critical moment. Which brings me to the question everyone should be asking. What happens if Flight 12 doesn't go according to plan? If we're talking minor issues, maybe a Raptor 3 underperforms slightly, or a grid fin actuator acts up, SpaceX can probably turn that around pretty quickly. We've seen them do it before. They'll analyze the telemetry, pinpoint the problem, implement a fix, and fly again within weeks. But if the failure is catastrophic, if V3 explodes during ascent or breaks apart during re-entry, that's a different story entirely. You're looking at a full FAA investigation, environmental reviews starting from scratch, and suddenly 3 to 6 months vanish from the calendar. Everything planned after Flight 12, orbital insertion, payload deployment, those critical refueling tests, all of it gets pushed. The entire 2026 roadmap collapses like dominoes. That's why I keep coming back to this flight being the gateway that unlocks everything else. Let's assume Flight 12 succeeds, and honestly, I hope it does. That makes Flight 13 the next major milestone, and this is where things get interesting from a competitive standpoint. Starship still hasn't officially reached orbit. Meanwhile, Blue Origin's New Glenn and China's Zhuqie-2 have already proven that methane-fueled rockets can get the job done. So, in a very real sense, SpaceX is playing catch-up in the Methalox race, which has to be frustrating for a company that's usually leading the pack. But here's the thing about Starship that changes the equation. The scale is completely different. We're talking about a vehicle designed to carry 100 tons to orbit with V3, potentially 200 tons with V4 down the line. New Glenn maxes out at 45 tons. Zhuqie-2 is in the 6-ton range. So yeah, SpaceX might not be first to orbit with methane, but they're building something in an entirely different weight class. What really gets my attention about Flight 13 is the landing profile they're considering. The ship could complete more than one full orbit before coming back, potentially landing in the Atlantic instead of the usual Indian Ocean splash zone. Why does that matter so much? Because it tests everything SpaceX needs for eventual return to launch site operations. Extended time in orbit means the heat shield gets exposed to prolonged thermal cycling, heating up, cooling down, heating up again. Navigation accuracy becomes absolutely critical when you're trying to hit a specific landing zone after circling the planet multiple times. And let's be honest, orbital mechanics at this scale don't forgive mistakes. One miscalculation in the deorbit burn, one navigation error, and that ship is missing its target by hundreds of miles. Then we get to Flight 14, and this is where Starship transitions from testing platform to commercial workhorse. SpaceX has been flying mass simulators for a while now, dummy payloads that just happen to match Starlink V3 specifications almost exactly. That's not a coincidence. These Starlink V3 satellites are bigger, more powerful, designed to dramatically increase network capacity. And Starship is the only vehicle that can deploy them efficiently at scale. Think about what 100 tons of satellites in a single flight means for constellation economics. It's a complete game changer. But here's where it gets tricky. Deployment maneuvers have to be extraordinarily precise. You're releasing dozens of satellites in sequence while traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. The margin for error is measured in milliseconds, not seconds. One timing mistake, one thruster misfire, and satellites start colliding. That's not just a mission failure. That's debris creation threatening your own constellation. So Flight 14 carries both commercial and technical risk. Success proves Starship can contribute meaningfully to the orbital economy. Failure means having some very uncomfortable conversations with stakeholders about why your new heavy-lift vehicle just damaged your own network. By the time we reach Flight 15, we're talking about something no aerospace organization has ever pulled off, catching both stages of an orbital-class rocket. Just think about what has to happen here. The Super Heavy booster comes back first, getting caught by Mechazilla at Pad 1. Meanwhile, the ship is still downrange, going through re-entry, and it has to survive that entire thermal environment before returning to Starbase for its own catch at Pad 2. Both towers have to work flawlessly. Both catches have to succeed. The technical coordination required is staggering. You're managing two simultaneous precision landing operations separated by both time and distance. If they actually pull this off, full reusability stops being theoretical and becomes proven, operational reality. But I'll be honest with you, what keeps me thinking about Flight 15 late at night is the ship's condition after re-entry. The booster has it relatively easy, returning quickly and spending minimal time in the atmosphere. The ship, though, it travels farther, re-enters faster, endures significantly more heating. We've already seen heat shield damage on previous flights, plasma burn-through in certain areas. For a successful catch, that ship needs to be structurally sound, aerodynamically stable, and precisely controllable all the way down. Any asymmetric damage, any degradation to the control surfaces, and suddenly that approach becomes too risky to attempt. SpaceX would have to wave off the catch and ditch the ship in the Gulf of Mexico. That's not a failure exactly, but it definitely delays the full reusability timeline they're pushing so hard toward. When we move into the second half of 2026, the focus shifts to what I consider Starship's most ambitious near-term challenge: orbital refueling. And this isn't optional technology we're talking about. Without refueling capability, Starship simply can't reach the Moon. It can't reach Mars. The physics are straightforward here. You need more propellant than a single launch can provide to escape Earth's gravity well and travel to deep space destinations. Musk has said SpaceX is planning multiple refueling tests starting around July or August, using a variant called Starship B3 that's specifically configured for tanker operations. The hardware for refueling connections has already been installed on Ship 39, and they're testing these components on upcoming flights to make sure everything can handle the stress before full system integration. The complexity of what they're attempting here really can't be overstated. You're connecting two spacecraft while both are in orbit, transferring cryogenic propellants, liquid methane and liquid oxygen, through hard lines while traveling at orbital velocity. Temperature management becomes absolutely critical in this environment. If the propellants warm up too much during transfer, you lose density and therefore capacity. If they cool unevenly, you risk thermal stress damaging tanks or connection lines. SpaceX estimates they'll need 4 flights, essentially 2 complete refueling demonstrations, just to establish basic proficiency with the system. The first mission might focus on proving the ship can keep cryogenic fuels stable in orbit for extended periods. Then the second mission performs the actual transfer, validating all the pumps, valves, and flow rates. But even that's just scratching the surface. For NASA's Artemis missions to the Moon, they're requiring something like 8 to 12 tanker flights to fully fuel a single lunar Starship. Every single one of those operations has to work perfectly. There's no tolerance for propellant loss, no room for connection failures. What really strikes me when I look at the full 2026 picture is how it positions SpaceX relative to everyone else competing in this space. You've got New Glenn, Vulcan, Neutron, China's Long March 9. Everyone's got ambitious plans on the table. But while other organizations are focused on reaching orbit reliably or making incremental improvements to payload capacity, SpaceX is attempting fundamental paradigm shifts. Full rapid reusability, orbital refueling, 100-ton payload deployments. These aren't evolutionary steps forward. They're trying to redefine what's possible. If SpaceX delivers even half of what's outlined for this year, they'll establish a capability gap that competitors simply can't close for years. But here's the reality check we all need to keep in mind. They actually have to execute on these plans. Ambitious roadmaps mean nothing without successful flights backing them up. And with this many new systems being introduced, this many industry firsts being attempted, the probability of setbacks is very real. That's what makes 2026 so compelling to watch. We're seeing SpaceX try to compress what would normally be years of development into just months of flight testing. The ambition is absolutely breathtaking. The risk is substantial, and the outcome is going to determine whether Starship becomes the revolutionary vehicle SpaceX has been promising, or just another program that couldn't quite live up to its potential. So here's what 2026 really comes down to. Flight 12 is the gateway that opens everything else. If SpaceX nails this V3 debut, we're looking at orbital missions, real payload deployments, refueling demonstrations, all of it happening before the year ends. But if they stumble early, that entire timeline compresses and delays start cascading through the schedule. That's just the reality when you're pushing this hard, this fast. Personally, I'm optimistic but cautious about it. SpaceX has definitely earned the benefit of the doubt with their track record, but they're attempting something genuinely unprecedented here. We'll know soon enough whether Starship becomes the revolutionary vehicle they've been promising, or if it needs more time to mature. Either way, it's going to be one remarkable year to watch unfold. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to New Space Review so you don't miss any Starship developments as they happen. Drop your own flight count predictions in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you all think is realistic. And speaking of SpaceX doing unexpected things, check out the video on your screen right now. SpaceX just did insane thing, throwing perfect engines away for this. You won't believe what they're planning next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Here's something wild happening at SpaceX's McGregor test facility right now. Perfectly functional Raptor 2 engines, dozens of them, some that never even flew a single mission, are being sent to the scrapyard. These aren't failed engines, they work flawlessly. So why would SpaceX scrap millions of dollars worth of working hardware? What makes Raptor 3 so transformative that Raptor 2 became instantly obsolete? And what does this aggressive move reveal about Starship version 3's timeline? Recent footage from McGregor shows something that looks crazy at first. Dozens of Raptor 2 engines sitting there, perfectly functional, many never fired beyond testing, just heading to the scrapyard. We're talking millions per engine being written off, but look deeper. This isn't waste. It's actually the clearest signal yet of how confident SpaceX is in Raptor 3. Musk's been saying for years that the only way to design a truly mass-producible engine is to actually mass-produce it and find the problems. Raptor 2 was never the end goal. It was a learning platform. Every single engine taught the Hawthorne team something about bottlenecks, quality issues, production flow. What's profound here is that SpaceX has learned everything Raptor 2 can teach them. They've hit the point where keeping these engines around would slow them down. Think about that. Raptor 3 isn't just marginally better, it's so fundamentally superior that maintaining compatibility with the old generation becomes a liability. That's not an upgrade. That's a generational leap. You can see this confidence everywhere at Starbase right now. Take the integrated hot staging ring on version 3 boosters. Complete structural redesign that eliminates the separate ring entirely. Since September, they've been hammering B18.3 with 7 cryogenic proof tests to verify tank strength. Now there's this specialized adapter that lets them literally squeeze the hot stage trusses, making absolutely sure these connections can handle forces from 33 Raptor 3 engines firing during separation. Meanwhile, Ship 39 is sitting in Mega Bay 2 with scaffolding around it, which immediately got people speculating. Was the heat shield coming off? Did they find something wrong? Was Flight 12 about to slip? But check this out. Ship 39's heat shield is the cleanest, most pristine thermal protection we've ever seen at Starbase. If there were fundamental problems, you wouldn't see this level of polish. What's